Okay. Is it time for me to start? I'm just trying to make sure. And everyone can hear me. Everyone can hear me, or is my audio okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Are you ready for me to start?
Yes, you can start now.
Okay, let me go ahead and see if I can share my screen. Okay. Okay, can everybody, you can see everything okay? Everything looks good. We're having no technical difficulties or anything like that, correct?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Everything looks good.
Excellent. Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm from a company called GenSpark. We help people switch careers. We help people get into the tech industry. They're having a hard time getting into it because it can be quite difficult to get your foot in the door. I am a lead instructor at GenSpark. I've been working there since the beginning, which has only been a few years, but it's fun to say that you've been there since the beginning. And that's why I have gray hair, right? Okay. So I just want to go ahead and get started with this and give you some ideas about what's going on in our society and what you can do about it through a process called gamification. So currently right now we have an education crisis, right? Verbal and math scores in the US have been receding for quite a long time. The question is, why is this the case and what can we do about it? Now, right here is the old scale for that, and here's the new scale. And like any good statistician, I'm going to use the old scale to convey a point I'm wanting to make, right? So you can see in the old scale that scores were falling right after the introduction of television. And television is obviously a very impactful, powerful medium that changed the world, right? So people were mostly used to static forms of medium. What I mean by that is like a book, right? Or a still image of some kind. And then television came around and it changed all that. So people were mesmerized by moving images on a screen. Now, what does that have to do with scores falling? Do you think that has anything to do with it? It may not. Let's see. Okay. So I have a question for you. Are you smarter than a goldfish? And by the way, I'm not the best at making slides or anything like that. So if these slides don't look that good, I'm sorry in advance. I'm not an artist. I'm just a programmer. Okay. So the question is, are you smarter than a goldfish? The average attention span for a goldfish is approximately 9 seconds, but according to a 2015 study from Microsoft Corporation, most people on average lose concentration after approximately 8 seconds. That's pretty astounding if you think about it. What was I talking about? Just kidding. All right. Research from the Intel Institute for Applied Behavioral Science suggests that people who listen to a lecture only retain about 5% of that information that was shared from the lecturer. So, right now you're listening to me. Hopefully I'm interesting enough. I don't really know. That's up to the person listening, right? Some people are interested more in other lectures than some others, right? But the on average, you only retain about 5% from a lecture, which means that if that study is true, if it's actually accurate, then the university system that spends a lot of time lecturing is doing a disservice to people, right? They should be adding something in addition to their curriculum in order to stimulate people past the 5% retention rate. Okay, I do want to say the last point is heavily disputed for various reasons, but other research has shown that student scores of passive learners are far less than active learners. So we can just say that passive learning is indeed inferior to active learning. And active learning is obviously when you're involved, when you're actually participating somehow, asking questions in class, any sort of participation with your hands, just your mind in general, some sort of problem solving, whatever kind of participation you can think of. There's got to be some sort of active learning that's going on with you in order for it to be active, right? So the question is, how do we retain people's attention when teaching something that is, quote, not exciting? Because that's a subjective thing as well. Okay, so let's put a little pin in that. So what is ADD, ADHD, right? Why is it on the rise? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder was found to be the second most impactful condition affecting children's health in the U.S. That's a study from the Blue Cross Blue Shield. In the past 8 years, ADHD diagnoses have climbed more than 30%. The current standing suggests that 10% of U.S. children have ADHD. According to the previous mentioned Microsoft study, the average attention span was 12 seconds in the year 2000, and now it's 8. So we can see this common trend where attention is going down across the board. It's affecting everybody. It's not just people who have been diagnosed with ADHD or ADD. People on a whole, especially in America, are losing their ability to pay attention. Now, the question is, why would we be losing attention over?
Yeah, I got that right. I remember that one.
Oh, what was that? Okay, I'm going to continue. Why would we be losing attention over time on average as a whole? Okay, so I keep asking that question. Why are we losing attention? Why are we getting distracted? And I have another question. Is ADD a problem or is it an adaptation? All right. The Center of Disease Control Prevention reports that children ages 8 to 10 spend on average 6 hours per day in front of a screen. So most children in the U.S. spend approximately 6 hours per day in front of a screen. Now, I would imagine it's even more than that at this point. I don't know. I don't have the data, but here we are in front of a screen right now, right? Kids ages 11 to 14 spend an average of 9 hours per day in front of a screen, and youth ages 15 to 18, 7.5 hours, probably more. And there was a survey that was conducted to analyze how much people need something to occupy their attention. For example, 77% of people aged 18 to 24 responded yes when they were asked, when nothing is occupying my attention, the first thing I do is reach for my phone, compared to only 10% of those over the age of 65. Okay, so everybody's distracted and everybody wants to be distracted because we get a little endorphin boost, right, from looking at our phones, from cruising the various different apps we have on our phones and on our computers. Okay. So there's something called brain plasticity or neuroplasticity, right? And this is in the way right here. So I'm going to move it out of the way. Here we go. We used to think that the brain was a static organ, that whatever brain structure you were born with, it remains that way until you die. However, that is not the case. Neuroplasticity is simply the ability of the brain to adapt to an external stimuli. So an external stimuli is anything at all. But right now I'm sitting in my office area at home. And when I look out to the left, there's a window over there and this beautiful scenery. Everything looks nice. So when I do that, even when I dart my eyes away from the screen, my brain immediately begins to adapt to whatever sort of, millions, trillions of bits of information that are entering through my eyes. Okay. So your brain is constantly adapting. Now, what does adapt mean? The brain literally changes its structure based on what you're doing, learning, interacting with the external stimuli. The process happens every second of the day. Your brain is constantly changing. Okay. So the brain is, interestingly enough, an adaptable organ. I know it's like, well, that's a contradiction. We're programmers here. We don't have contradictions, but the brain is highly adaptable. The problem is in its process of adaptation, it builds these things called neural pathways. Okay. So neural pathways make it hard to think outside of the box. I hate that saying. Everybody says it, but it's true. It is very difficult to think outside of the box because these neural pathways, they have your brain has a tendency to go down the same pathway every single time. So once you learn something, you'll start to make certain associations with other things you learn after that initial thing that you learned, going through old neural pathways. And you can miss certain things about new information because your brain keeps trying to go down old pathways. So a neural pathway is a series of connected neurons that send signals from one part of the brain to another. Once your brain has these pathways intact, right, once it uses them again and again, it will weaken alternative paths and strengthen older ones. So the already established paths are the ones that get strength. So you can think of this like this image that you're seeing right in front of you of this person walking through the snow, right? So think of that as your brain, and a neural pathway is being created because that person is interacting with, I don't know, a new programming language, since we're in the context of programmers here or whatever. And maybe they see it through imperative eyes, right? Instead of the functional programming paradigm, maybe they're looking at it through the imperative OOP paradigm. Who knows? And maybe they're missing certain things because their brain is trying to make associations that don't naturally fit, right? The path needs to go off to the left toward the mountain, not the mountain with less snow, the one to the left, instead of the mountain straight ahead. And the mountain to the left is a new paradigm, but this person has stuck in the same paradigm for so long that it's very difficult for them to move in the other direction. And I'm getting somewhere. You're probably like, what's the point of all this neuroplasticity and ADD and all that kind of stuff? Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is your brain has been configured by media, right? It's been configured by video games. It's been configured by, I don't know, ebooks. It's been configured by your phone. You're constantly inundated with media, right? The brain, your brain, has adapted to all media that it has been inundated with from the day you were born, establishing a multitude of neural pathways which are configured for the consumption of media. That's important. They're configured for the consumption of media. They're not configured for the consumption of a book that sits on your shelf, right? So when you try to learn something like mathematics in an old format, and what I mean by old is before this storm of media, so trying to learn it from a book, graphs that are drawn in the book, just static graphs that just sit in front of your face. Your brain is like, where's the animation? Where's the sound? Where's the flashing colors? This is what I see all the time. What is this? And it's hard for your brain to readapt, so to speak, back to the old way of learning. Okay. So in order for you to learn more successfully without frustration or with less frustration, you need to embrace these pathways. Otherwise, you will have to form new pathways, which is not practical unless you become a Luddite, someone who hates technology. So how do we embrace these media-induced pathways? How do we change the way we learn in order to utilize the structure of the brain that was built by the various stimuli coming from media? How do we utilize it? Gamification, right? So if we can utilize...
Here a little bit more new Technica hackathons. We're going to have a lot of helpful information. I also wanted to mention that we still do have work.
Okay. That was nice, whatever you said. All right, so what is gamification? It's the application of connecting typical elements of game playing, like point scoring, competition with others, rules of play, to other areas of activity, typically as online marketing technique to encourage engagement. Now, let me move this again. It's in the way for me. I don't even know if y'all can see what I'm talking about. The question I have for you is a picture worth 1,000 words? That's an old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, because, there's so much detail that can be in a picture. Well, then I would say if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a movie or an animation would be worth, I don't know, 1,000,000 words. And if an animation or movie is worth 1,000,000 words, what would an interactive animation be worth? 1,000,000,000 words? And what is an interactive animation? Simply speaking, a real-time interactive simulation or animation is just a video game, right? So as a programmer, we can take this to the next level, right? Gamification. It doesn't have to simply be just point scoring or competition, rules of play. We can literally make a game out of the learning process. So let me give you an example of that. I've got a little example right here. Okay. So I am trying to move this thing out of the way again. Hold on, get that out of the way. All right. Okay. So as you can see, you've got your IDE over here. This is IntelliJ, and this is, I don't know, the vampire theme, I think. And over here on the left is Unreal Engine 5. Maybe y'all have heard about Unreal Engine. You probably have. Most people have that are younger, especially, have heard about Unreal Engine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this game. And this game sets up it plays some nice little music in the background. It sets up a WebSocket server. And I'm going to run this program, and this program will send information to the WebSocket server, and it will try to determine whether or not I got the program right. At first, I don't realize that I'm going to have to program anything. I do, but applications. I don't realize I don't have to program anything. I'm playing a game and I'm like, okay, I've got to get to this gold thing out here in the distance, right? So I'm gonna jump on this platform. Okay, I made it there. I've got insane jump skills. And then I noticed there's some kind of, I don't know, skeleton creature over there or whatever. And I've got to get past him. Maybe I could just jump past him. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay. So I went into some sort of battle mode. In this battle mode, I have to solve this programming problem in order to be able to defeat this creature. That's the only way past him. There's no sort of interaction. All inputs are shut down. My only option now is to solve this problem. So I've already got the code written out. Basically, you can see up here in the comments, it says return hello arg, where arg should be replaced by the argument given to the method. The argument to the method is a string s, okay? So at first I'm gonna get it wrong. Maybe it's hello plus s concatenated like that. And let's see, move that over. Let's run the code and let's see what happens. I think I got it right, maybe. Well, I didn't get it right. So that kind of negative feedback, which is good feedback, really implants in my mind, boy, I got that wrong, but I really want to see what happens when I get it right. So let me just get it right. Okay. Did I get it right this time? Yeah. My poor little guy's getting beat to death. Okay, hold on. I think I've got it this time. All right, I think I've got it this time. Let's see what happens. Whoa. That was unexpected. Actually, it was completely expected. Okay, so you can see you get a strong positive feedback when you actually solve the problem correctly. You get this amazing little endorphin boost. It's like, wow, I just defeated that enemy, and now I can continue on to the whole thing up the hill that magically disappeared for some reason. That's how tech demos go. I guess it was on a timer. Anyway, I run up here, I go all the way up, and I would have acquired the gold thing, and maybe something cool would have happened. But you get the point. Okay, now because I have no more reason for anything, I'm just going to jump off on it. All right, and my character is falling into the abyss. But I can stop it because it's just a game. Okay, so let's go back to the slides, which are much more exciting than an actual video game. We all know that. Okay. So how are people educated in 2022? Mostly people are educated the same way they were when the entire American university process began at Harvard University in 1636. Lecture, whiteboard, chalkboard, slide presentation, rinse and repeat, kind of like this thing that I showed you just now, this slideshow, right? But my question to you, or how I want to inspire you, is I want you to think about how can I gamify applications, the learning process itself. Could I animate mathematical processes or algorithms? Could I make them much more visual, much more intuitive, right? We like to use that word intuitive as well. Could I somehow make the process fun, distract the learner from the grind of learning, and make the process enjoyable, almost like an adventure in a game where eventually you arrive at some goal and you're like, wow, look at my character. My character has grown so much and everything else. But then you look at yourself and say, hey, I learned how to program in the process, or I learned math, or I learned history, or I learned whatever, right? So that's really what I want you to get from this. So my question is, what will you do? Once again, U.S. test scores have fallen over time. Why is this the case? What can we do about it? Well, we believe the case is because of brain plasticity. There was a neuroadaptation to the inundation of media. So all this external stimuli from media has caused the brain to reconfigure itself to consume media and media alone. And so we need to make learning materials and curriculum more like the media that people consume. And we can see that is because we're still teaching people as if it were 386 years ago. Yet in the US, we're indulgent with media. We have wired our brains to process, store, and retrieve information in the context of media. Put simply, right here is the overall thesis, right? Put simply, we need to make curriculum that emulates the information transference of media. Thank you. That is my talk. I never know how to end these things, so that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Any observations?
So Jacob, they are asking some questions in the chat here. This is
Oh, okay.
one question was, how would gamification education apply different subjects beyond coding?
Well, see, I've spent most of my time thinking about how to convey information through coding, but using gamification to convey information through coding. But I think there's other ways to do it too. For example, we have VR and AR now, right? So say you wanted to give somebody a historical lesson, and instead of just saying this battle occurred at this location, you could possibly recreate it in 3D and have a virtual reality or altered reality experience where they can literally see the battle and move around in it. I'm not saying you would want to do that with children. Maybe that would be too graphic. Maybe you could cut it down, but you get the idea that you could actually put people in the battle itself, or I don't know, maybe a peaceful location, a peaceful point in history, but you can transport people to a certain place and make it an experience that they won't forget. I mean, a lot of times when you go outside and you see some dramatically beautiful nature scene, you never forget it. So imagine if you could do the same to animate history itself. And history is just one subject. With mathematics, you could have them solving math problems through numerous different visual feedback ways. There's a lot of ways to do that. So that's math and history. Science, you could have them, once again, interacting with a chemistry set of some kind through AR, using augmented reality, have it detect where their hands are, make sure they mix compounds right, whatever. I mean, it's really up to your imagination. And, the whole point of my talk was to kind of try to stimulate your imagination so that you would think of ways to solve these problems, because it's unsolved territory. There's a lot of work to do. A lot of people need to start working on a new form of curriculum, in my opinion. Right. I agree, Faye. Yeah, the stuff is gamified at the early levels, but why isn't it continually gamified? Kids get all the cool stuff. Okay, so I see Manor said, is coding a 3D place for virtual reality a job? Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of jobs out there. I don't really know. You'd have to look around. And then Faye said, I think that it isn't a maturity thing. I think adults could benefit too. I agree. Are there any more questions? Does anyone else from Gens Park want to speak on anything? I think that's pretty much it. Nobody's asking.
Hey, Jacob, really fast, right? For those that are in here, right? Gens Park, we are a training company, right? We hire you, bring you in, train you, deploy you with our clients, right? That's kind of the overall scheme of Gens Park. So how does Gens Park try to incorporate gamification within our in-house curriculum? So students that might be coming to Gens Park, right? How are we trying to incorporate gamification into our actual curriculum for upcoming students that might want to join?
Were you asking me that question, Adam? Because it was very difficult to understand you.
Oh, really? Sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you decently well, but not entirely well. I think you said, how do we already do that in our curriculum?
Yeah, how are we doing that? What is our future plans like? Because what we do at GenSpark, we do have our own in-house curriculum that we train students, right? So how are we using gamification, and what does our future look like here at GenSpark for gamification?
Yeah, so that was an example. You saw an example of kind of how we do our curriculum at GenSpark. So you solve a problem and you get immediate feedback. So I didn't show you everything because of the time constraints of a presentation, but when you solve the problem, when you don't solve the problem, when you get something wrong, it actually tells you the exact input that was incorrect. It gives you that kind of feedback. So you get real-time feedback that you can't really get from people, right? Even if you have a classroom that's only 10 students, it's a tiny classroom, and there's one teacher in there, that teacher on average will spend time with you in the classroom 1/10 of the time, right? 1/10 of the time slot that they're there, they're going to give you that time. But if you have a gamified application that can give consistent feedback, it will be giving you its time 100% of the time and telling you where you went wrong. And so that's an application we already have at GenSpark. When people attempt some problem, they get immediate feedback. And to me, immediate feedback is huge for learning, because if you're stuck on something